All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my talk. My name is Sebastian. I'm a developer advocate at JetBrains. I mostly do stuff around Kotlin. You may have seen me speak around Kotlin JS before. But today I'm actually here to talk to you about a new project that we've been developing at JetBrains, and that is Compose for Desktop. Now, for those people who are expecting some kind of tutorial or something that's going to get you started right away, I might need to disappoint you a little bit here. Since this is kind of a lightning talk, it's going to be a bit more of a tastemaker. So I kind of want to give you some background info of what's happening with Compose for Desktop. I want to show off some smaller examples so that you can see what you can do with the framework, and then give you some resources so you can take some time and play with the framework yourself. So this talk is about Compose for Desktop, but Compose for Desktop really is just a logical extension that we have built at JetBrains to Jetpack Compose, which is mainly developed by Google. So to understand Compose for Desktop, we must first understand Jetpack Compose. And we can try doing that in like 3 slides. I'm gonna attempt a speed run of trying to kind of explain to you what Compose or Jetpack Compose is. Now, the description on the actual website of Jetpack Compose, I didn't find very clear. I mean, yeah, it says it's an Android toolkit that allows you to build native UI and it accelerates UI development. Sure, less code intuitive, accelerate development, powerful. Those all seem like things that these days pretty much every framework can do. So what is Jetpack Compose actually? It's a declarative UI framework for Android. So if you have worked with something like React before, if you've worked with something like Swift UI before or Elm, you're going to feel right at home. Generally, declarative UI just means that you express your user interface as a function which takes the current state and you kind of define some operations that happen to this state. So let's speed run one quick example for this. The 2 core parts that you need to know is you can store state. In this example, we are storing a counter variable by using this interesting construct, but really at the end of the day, we're just storing an integer with the default value 0 here. And we define what our user interface should actually look like as a function based on that state. So in this case, we are rendering a button, and then in that button, we are rendering some text, and that text is going to be our current counter. Now, and we also like hook up the onClick function. So that means that when someone clicks the button, our variable gets incremented. And the real magic here is that even though we don't explicitly kind of label the connection between what should happen when someone presses the button and what should happen to the text label, Jetpack Compose as a declarative framework will figure out for us that, hey, the state has changed, so we should re-render the text inside our button. And that's really kind of the magic of this framework. It's all the rage also in kind of the web development with React, for example. So you might recognize some similar patterns here. And then the other big part, which also I guess has to do with its name, is that you structure your application using composables. So these are components that can be reused. They're typically organized in like a tree. In our case here, we've actually already implicitly seen a couple of composables. We've seen the button, which is a composable, the text, which is a composable. And now if we wanted to reuse this specific construct, we just annotate our function with the composable annotation, and that's going to work as well. And we could reuse it at some other point. Now, again, we can't really dive too deeply into this. I hope this just kind of helps with understanding the like 3 other code examples that I have later on. But it's just kind of convenient. We'll have some materials linked in the end which are going to help a little bit more with getting started with this. And now we can actually talk about Compose for desktop, which is exactly what the name implies. It takes the framework which Google has built for Android and allows you to run it on the desktop. So it comes with the same material UI design elements which you see on your Android devices, and you can just run them directly on the desktop. So this is really nice, especially if you already have some kind of like Jetpack Compose knowledge on Android. You now magically can also write desktop UIs because the APIs are literally the same. Compose for desktop is really just an extended part of Jetpack Compose. And under the hood, this is powered by Google's Skia library. So this is a high-performance native rendering library. It's the same library that powers Chrome, that powers Flutter, that powers a bunch of other platforms. And we kind of give you this declarative way of editing and showing off UI. And of course, we kind of go beyond all the stuff that you have in Android. So you have those basic APIs, you have those basic components, but we also have some extra features where it makes sense. So for example, all the tasks that are specifically desktop related. For example, if we have a text field like this one, we could add a clickable modifier, which really mostly makes sense if you actually have access to a mouse. So you could kind of wire up the on-click function, on double-click, on long-click, whatever you want. And of course, there's a bunch of other mouse events here as well. Now, we are actually designing a number of APIs which are specific to the desktop. And this is something that we at JetBrains are doing. And since currently Compose for Desktop is still in a milestone release, we actually heavily rely on your feedback when it comes to this API design as well, because we want to design APIs that feel the same way as the rest of Jetpack Compose and that give you the functionality that you need the most. So just as a short overview, we have support for bitmap and vector graphics. We also expose the underlying high-performance native canvas directly. So if you want to just draw to that, you can do this. We have keyboard events, which obviously help. We have desktop-specific scroll bars if you're working with longer lists. Various system integrations. You can put up a tray icon, for example. You could send local notifications through your operating system. So if you want to have macOS pop up a little bubble saying, "Hey, my app needs attention," you can do that. And of course, we also build a window API, so you can check the size, you can check the position, and you can also, for example, change the decoration. So if you want to build like a small app that only pops up when you press a tray icon, you can do this, for example, and don't need to spawn a full window. So if you do decide to check out Compose for Desktop after this talk, and you maybe find some of the APIs a bit strange, or they don't behave as you expect or something, I mean, I hope they will work the way that you expect, but if they don't, we of course are really looking forward to your feedback. Now, of course, those people that already have written desktop APIs in Java will have done so with probably one of kind of two technologies, and those are Swing and AWT. And in a good old fashion, in the same fashion that kind of Kotlin allows you to keep most of your code in Java and kind of gradually migrate over after a while, we kind of try to have the same approach with Jetpack Compose for desktop. So we integrate with Swing and AWT. You can just kind of spawn a Compose canvas inside a Swing window, for example. You can just add that, and you can modify the state of it from externally, and also kind of access the state of the surrounding application directly from within Compose for Desktop. So this is, again, kind of useful. For example, if you're a company like JetBrains, who has built a lot of IDEs on top of Swing and maybe wants to try something new at a certain point, this might certainly be one way that we could, for example, look at this. But you might be in a similar situation. Another thing that is pretty critical for the success of kind of running a JVM application on the desktop is how you actually can get it to your users. This was traditionally kind of hard because people need to have the right Java version installed. They need to figure out how their operating system can launch the jar file that you're shipping, or maybe you're using some kind of other bundlers. Compose for Desktop integrates directly with JPackage, which allows you to generate standalone packages for all three major platforms. So you're going to get a Microsoft installer MSI file. You're going to get a deb file, or you get a DMG file, depending on whether you're targeting Windows, Linux, Mac OS. And those are going to be completely standalone. So your clients or the people that you deliver the software to do not need to have a specific version of Java installed just to get your application running. And of course, one of the most interesting parts probably for the mobile developers of you is that from the ground up, this was designed to be multi-platform. So if you have an Android application that's written in Jetpack Compose, there's a good chance that you'll be able to kind of copy paste this over into a Compose for Desktop project, and it's just going to work. And if you want to share code between a mobile application on Android and a desktop application, you can do that using the Kotlin multi-platform project as well. And that is sharing UI code. So on a component base, or on like a composable base, you can really share things. So this is one of the examples that we actually also have. So there's really a lot of kind of different ways that you can use Compose, and I think the best way to approach it is probably to explore it for yourself. If you have IntelliJ IDEA 2020.3 or later, though I don't know how you would have it later, at least at this point, you have an integration for wizards in the new projects section of the IDE. So if you just scroll all the way to the bottom, there is two entries. There's a desktop entry and there's a multi-platform entry. And the desktop entry just starts you with a simple window where you can start typing things out. And the multi-platform one includes Android as well in the same package. The good thing here is that you really don't need to kind of dive into any of the Gradle stuff, though I always recommend at least having a look so you can kind of understand what's going on in the background, even if you want to avoid touching that on your own. The kind of starting point for learning everything about Compose for Desktop itself is the landing page we have. From there, we link a bunch of example code. We have a large number of tutorials as well, specific for desktop. We link the GitHub repository where there's obviously more information. And you can see stuff like the changelog. And I would really recommend that if you want to learn Compose for Desktop, or if you want to even just learn Jetpack Compose regularly, you should do so by actually grabbing some code and writing it yourself, kind of playing around with it. This is why I really love UI frameworks, especially if they're kind of simple, is because the result you get is very visual. So you try something out, it doesn't look the way that you expect it to, you change something, and you kind of iterate towards the solution that you want to have. Now, if the one slide example of Compose wasn't enough to allow you to put like certified Compose developer on your LinkedIn profile just yet, I would suggest that you take a look at the Jetpack Compose pathway, which is something where Google provides kind of like a 10-step tutorial, kind of to explain the basics of Compose with some articles, some videos, and more. And because these are mostly really like core ideas of Compose and not something that is specific to Android. This is going to port over super nicely with Compose for desktop. If you're actually coming from an area where you have already worked with another declarative UI framework like React or like Swift UI, then I can suggest these two resources. The first one is the React to Jetpack Compose Dictionary by Tiger Oaks. I have to really say this has helped me quite a lot because I've been doing a lot of React with Kotlin JS recently, so it was really smooth to just kind of be able to map the concepts that you're already aware of to a new framework. And of course, for Swift UI, the same one available at that URL. If you want to kind of learn a little bit more about how these applications would be structured, how these kind of like maybe also how these things could be used, we have a bunch of demo applications. I believe right now there's 4 of them in the repository or linked directly from the landing page. So we show off a to-do list, we show off an image viewer, something that includes networking with integration for GitHub, and even a text editor. We might be kind of biased at JetBrains building text editors. As far as I know, we actually also received a pull request just today, which made the to-do list example also include Swift UI. So it's nice because while you can't really share the UI code there, it at least allows you to kind of compare the two implementations between Android desktop and iOS. And really, I would just suggest that you kind of do something hands-on. When I first kind of encountered the technology, I was immediately kind of enamored with it because like in one afternoon, I could build something that I had dreamed about for like a year, which is my emoji picker, which I use to build my slide decks nowadays. Beforehand, that was always very cumbersome, and I've dreamed a long time about the way of building this in a modern way, integrating with clipboards, all these kind of things, integrating with the tray, but not having the option because all I had was Swing and I didn't want to write it in a different language. So yeah, definitely go for it. And I'm sure that within an afternoon, you'll be able to build something that's maybe not amazing, but that's a good start. And from there, you can just kind of grow yourself. There's a couple of other community members which have created some cool stuff with Compose for desktop as well, which maybe you can use as inspiration. The first one is the maybe infamous now for people who've done a lot of Kotlin multi-platform project People in Space by John O'Reilly, apologies. So this is a multi-platform project that really combines pretty much every platform we possibly target, from web to desktop to iOS. It really goes everywhere. And it's just a nice and very clean project that kind of shows off some nice approaches. I saw John in the chat before as well. Maybe he can give me like a little wave emoji later. The other fun thing that we've seen is from Gurupreet, which is Compose Spotify Desktop. It's kind of a mock-up of the Spotify UI written in Jetpack Compose for desktop. He on his Twitter account also said, wow, it was crazy how easy it was kind of to get started and to port over things from Android to desktop. My favorite thing is if you actually look on his Twitter account after the whole adding stories to everything craze, he showed off how he added stories to this Spotify desktop demo within, I think, like 60 seconds or 70 seconds. It really allows you to kind of be very fast. And yeah, as kind of a design example still, there's the desk notes example. Unfortunately, I don't have the username for this gentleman or lady here, which kind of just shows you how you can again build some like notes user interfaces. And again, it's just something nice to explore. And when you do explore these kind of things, I would very much encourage you to also join us on the Kotlin Slack. and talk to us in the Compose for Desktop Slack channel. We'll give you some support there, and in exchange, maybe you can share some of the cool ideas that you're doing, or maybe some of the cool content that is still remains to be written. So yeah, if you are looking to become an influencer, maybe the Compose for Desktop space is still wide open, and we would very much love to see more people in the community writing content around it and maybe showing it off. So yeah, maybe this is your chance. And that's really kind of all that I have for today. My call to action for you is to compose some UIs. If you already have some Android stuff, maybe try porting it over to desktop. And if you've never done anything with Jetpack Compose before, I mean, now's a great time to start. Now you already have 2 platforms which you can target if you learn Compose. Yeah. Apart from that, if you want to give me a small Christmas present, I'm currently at 956 followers on Twitter. If you want to push me over the 1,000, I mean, I would appreciate it. Apart from that, we can kind of go to the Q&A and see what people still have for burning questions. So I already see the first one. I encourage you to post more, though. Is Compose for Desktop able to show totally different UI based on the device, whether it's mobile or desktop? Yeah, absolutely. So you can you can pretty much just so you can reuse, but nobody is forcing you to reuse. Like for example, the page layouts. You could, as I said beforehand, it's really on a like composable or on like a component basis. So if you just want to rip out the card composable that you have built, which kind of shows off, I don't know, a recipe item with a picture and a title, you can just reuse that in like a different context on desktop than you would on mobile, for example. So you can you can mix and match as you wish. So let's wait like 20 more seconds. In the meantime, should I like check my follower count or something? We're just gonna wait here, but I think yeah, looking very quiet. Again, if you have some questions, please reach out to me on Twitter. I'm also in the Compose for Desktop Slack channel, or yeah, I would usually say find me after the show over a beer or a slice of pizza. Unfortunately, that's not possible. So we'll have to make do somehow else. Cool. Then thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for tuning in. And stay tuned because there's another great talk coming up. Take care.